What's going on, my PT peeps, my House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones fans? I'm One Eye Bry, also known as PT. Don't know if I'm winking or blinking, but I'm definitely thinking about Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, Season 1, Episode 2. Spoiler warning, obviously, for all that stuff. So overall, House of the Dragon, I'm loving it so far. And it's great because it feels like Game of Thrones, and it feels like a continuation of Game of Thrones with the Targaryens, even though it's not. We know it's a prequel. But it just feels that way, especially with Rhaenyra. And I got to get up to Daemon. Without Daemon, the show would be pretty boring. But I love the opening. They connected the dots with Game of Thrones and kept the music and mixed it up a little bit. And I don't really know the houses and the stuff that was changing and stuff. But I'm guessing that the blood trail, the bloodlines, were going through Viserys's model type thing. Is that what it was? Like, it's hard to see. You can see the little steps and the stonework and everything there too. Was it Viserys' sculpture of Valyria? I'm just guessing it was. And again, I'm not the best with this, so if I say names wrong, I apologize. I didn't read the books and all that, but it's just cool to see and talk about because I do love this show already. And I am a Game of Thrones fan. I will say that, even though the ending of the series was pretty bad overall, but it's just cool to see the dragons. And that's probably one of the coolest things. And again, I have not read Fire and Blood by George R. R. Martin, the book. So I'm hoping that this series, they already got greenlit for a second season. The episode starts with some grossly hands that were, nailed to some wood, some skulls and crabs, and the crab feeder guy. We're going to get a battle, which is cool. It's always good to have a nice battle. And I can't wait for episode 3. It looks like we're going to have the dragon fire and just a big battle here in the Stepstones. But then the cinematography is great. I mean, it just really is. They do a great job in this series, and HBO has got the funding behind it, so it's going to be awesome. And it is so far, in my opinion. And I think the ratings went up for the second episode, and it's probably going to go up for the third because people are like, I don't know about this, right? Well, I see Viserys as kind of like a weak, childlike king. He's not really doing much. The council and just his people there are really pulling the strings, and whatever they say kind of goes. And it's interesting because you get to see that Rhaenyra wants to be a princess or a queen, and she wants to have her say. But she's not Cersei, so we know how that's going to go here. It's not going to go well because it's a man's world, basically how they do it here. And we see the person of choosing by Rhaenyra, and she picks Sir Criston Cole, which I have to say, we got to get another fight scene with Criston Cole and Daemon. That's got to happen, in my opinion. But as she looks on, she picks her choosing, and it's good that she made the decision, even though everyone's kind of telling her, like, nah, you actually want to pick this person because they actually protect the crown, and they're a part of this, and they're a part of this group. Well, she don't care, and I like that about it. At the end of the day, she picked her person, Criston Cole, which is cool to see her doing her own thing, and that's kind of what Daenerys was. And this is basically, he's asleep here. No, just kidding. It's a great shot of it. But I love to see Rhaenyra being like Daenerys, and there's just no way that she's not. The look, the dragon's field, the clothing, it just looks so much like it, and it's cool to see the different houses. And I have to say, the name that he said there, is that connected with the Game of Thrones character? Dondarrion, I think, right? Was it? Again, I'm not the best at that, I apologize. But ultimately, Otto Hightower reminds me so much of Littlefinger. Right? Anyone else? Is that what we're getting this vibe from it? It's going to be a lot of connecting the dots and callbacks and Easter eggs, and even though we love that here. But I just see her as Catelyn Stark, by the way. We'll talk about Rhaenys in a bit. But ultimately, we get to see Rhaenyra doing her thing, and it's awesome. When I see Viserys sculpting Valyria and setting up the dragons and his stories and basically bonding with Alicent, I just see him as like a child. Like, he's not a true king. He's not very strong. He doesn't really do much. Like, what does he really do besides get mad when they bring up his dead son? When he breaks the dragon, Alicent picks it up. So I see foreshadowing here, obviously, as she's going to be the new queen, and it's going to be weird with, Alicent and Rhaenyra. It's just, this is what Game of Thrones is all about, ultimately. And you can see that she's doing it to please her father, but she's not into it. She doesn't really love Viserys, but she's there. It's cool to see King's Landing and just how things look different. They're the same, but they're different. It looks very much different here because it was 170 some odd years before we saw it on Game of Thrones, so it should look different. The bonding with Rhaenyra and Alicent, and they're good friends, soon to be related, which has got to be weird. The other thing is that Corlys and Rhaenys want their child to be queen, which is like super creepy because she's so young. But you get to see the struggled relationship with Viserys and Rhaenyra, and I just wonder what's going to happen when Viserys dies. I don't know the book, so I don't know when it happens, why it happens, or anything like that, but the weak got to get killed, right? And we know that Viserys is weak. Hightower, again, like I said, Otto Hightower reminds me so much of Littlefinger, just for obvious reasons. The maggots with his finger, does he actually lose the finger? And I guess that's what they would do back then in the medieval days. They didn't have Neosporin or put any, first aid cream on it. But as Corlys basically pimps out his daughter, which they love to do that in Game of Thrones. So like, hey, the bloodlines, and you can do this. I'm sure they rehearsed this speech, but as Corlys' daughter, I'm blanking on her name. Please let me know in the comments her name. But when Viserys and them are talking, it's basically like, how old is Viserys? And I believe the girl here is like 12 years old, but she even looks younger than that. Like, it's just like, I just can't picture that. I don't want to picture that, and I'm glad it's not happening, honestly. But as Rhaenyra looks on, we get to see the conversation with Rhaenys and Rhaenyra, which is great. And we basically all know this and all feel this, that a woman is not going to run things. And Rhaenys accepts that. But she doesn't like it, but she accepts it. And she reminds me so much of Catelyn Stark. It just how her demeanor is and how she talks. And again, the characters, are they designed to make us remember the people from Game of Thrones, or is it just us remembering it or me remembering it? What do you think? As Alicent is bonding with Viserys, it was planned that way by Otto. When she gives him the gift, which is very nice. It's a nice thing, and you can see the joy in Viserys' face. Like, oh, that's thoughtful. And it's nice. And I like Viserys. He's just not a king. He's just not the true king that can get stuff done. He sits with his council, and they talk about, Daemon came and stole the egg. And it's basically like, oh, okay, it's all right. It's not a big deal. Until we find out it was Balon's egg, and it was a big deal because that's what sets off Viserys. That's when he's triggered. And I love the idea of the Dragon Keepers, which is awesome. To me, they're like monks. They're very spiritual, and I would love to see them, that they know how to fight and take care of things. That'd be awesome to see. That's just what they remind me of, especially their outfit. And I guess they're like zookeepers or animal keepers, but it's just pretty cool that they, take care of the dragons. And I just love the dynamic of all this stuff. This is true Game of Thrones. You can see Hightower is like, okay, what are we going to do? And when Viserys talks about the wall and what should we do, it's cool to connect the dots yet again. When we hear about Daemon's going to get married, and we hear what he's going to do with the egg, why did he take it? Well, we find out who it was for and whose egg it was, then it's a big deal. Like I said, it sets off Viserys. But Daemon is really stirring the pot, trying to get Viserys' attention. And I guess this is what brothers and sometimes siblings do, because he knows how to push his buttons. That's for sure. He knows what he's doing here. And I'm sure that he loves his brother. And Viserys was going to go. But then Hightower's like, no, I can't do that. And Viserys listens. If Viserys wanted to go, just go. Stop listening to other people. And that was the whole point of what Daemon wanted. He wanted his brother there to talk to him, confront him. I don't think he would kill him, but who knows? Again, I don't know what happens in the books. But as Hightower is suiting up, I'm telling you, I can't get over it. It's basically Littlefinger, I guess 1.0. He was before Littlefinger, 2.0. And as Alicent and Otto are, talking and I guess bonding, you can see that Otto cares about Alicent, but he's definitely using her to get what he wants. Does he want to be king? Does he want his house to be stronger and just build it up? And you can see that Alicent has some OCD and anxiety and nerves, and this is what she's doing at it. Even back then, they're just showing that. And then Sir Christian Cole comes and says, all right, we got to go. We're ready to roll out. Let's get going. So it's pretty awesome that they went to Dragonstone. I'm glad they went here. And I see that. Is that like a dragon foot at the front of the boat there? Is that what it is there? A dragon thing? These are the ships of the Targaryens. And it's just cool to see Dragonstone. And I'm glad it was in the second episode, like right away. They're not messing around on this show. They're showing us stuff right away. The dragons came in right away. Dragonstone right away. And then I think in the third episode, we're going to get a battle of the Stepstones, or I think is what it was. So it's pretty cool that we see Dragonstone from afar and inside. I guess they reused the set. And again, Daemon, this show would be boring without this guy. And he's going to do a lot for the show. And you can see Daemon with his side piece, I guess, right? Because that's not his wife. And are they actually going to get married? I don't know. But he's just rocking the egg. I was so worried about the egg the entire time. And I know it's a show and nothing's going to happen to it, what we think. But he's just so dangerous with it. He's so reckless with it. And Hightower looks on. And were they really going to fight here in this limited space? Like, it was just kind of clustered together. Hightower versus Daemon. I don't think Hightower would stand a chance anymore, or Otto, I should say, right? But you could see that Daemon was pissed and didn't like the fact that his brother wasn't there. And then we see his dragon looks on. I have to say, like, the skull of this dragon is very small, and Cyrax, Rhaenyra's dragon, why are they so small compared to the other ones? Like, you see the other dragon skulls are pretty big, and I know it's fictional, but just made me think about it. The long neck, is it a different style of dragon? Is there different kinds? Or, what is it? Or is it just a younger dragon that'll grow into his face and skull, right? But Daemon points his sword, and is it foreshadowing because he points his sword at Otto Hightower and keeps it there? So does that mean that he's going to kill Otto Hightower? I'm guessing, right? I think who would be more crucial to the show? Otto or Daemon? Both, of course, but I think Daemon is, in my opinion. Again, I haven't read the books, and I wonder if they're going to have it exactly like the books. Either way, twists and turns, the book is the book, and the show is the show kind of thing. But again, you see his sword, Daemon's sword, is pointed right at Otto. So is that foreshadowing to take him out? And it's pretty awesome cinematography, yet again, where the dragon comes flying out of the clouds up into the sky, and it reminds me a lot of Game of Thrones. And it is Game of Thrones. It says Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon. And right away, we're seeing dragons, which it should, because it's House of the Dragon. Remember Game of Thrones, where we didn't see dragons for a while? Like, I think it was in season 2 when we finally saw the baby dragons. But as Rhaenyra shows up, uninvited, by the way, I gotta love the saddle that she's rocking. Would have wished they had those in Game of Thrones, but they didn't. And she rolls in, great cinematography. You see the two dragons, dueling dragons. Anyone been on that ride at Universal? But we see a good shot of the dragons, and it's just cool to see. And mystic beasts, who doesn't love a good dragon here? It's a pretty cool scene. And then we see that Daemon is like, oh crap, gotta deal with Rhaenyra now. Another Targaryen to deal with here. But I think Daemon wants to be accepted. He wants his family to be there, so he's okay with it. Now, I don't think anything would happen between Rhaenyra and Daemon, like they would fight, or will that happen down the road? We'll have to see what happens. But I love the dialogue here. My father named me Princess of Dragonstone. He's like, yeah, that's great. Well, this is my castle. You're living in, Uncle. Well, again, he's like, that's great, but you're too young. You're not living here now. You're in King's Landing. Not until you come of age, right? So who was that Dragonstone before Daemon? It's too cool of a place to be left, uninhabited here. You have angered your king. That's the whole point. Daemon don't care, because Viserys ain't going to do nothing. Daemon knows that he could take him out. He's not worried about it. I don't see why. Like, he knows what he's doing. He's stirring the pot. Being that sibling to mess with you there too. This is a day of celebration. I am to wed. He's like, you're already married, right? But I guess the Targaryen way or the Valyrian way is that you could actually be with more than one woman, right? Not of my choosing. So it's crazy because you get to learn that Daemon's full of crap. Like, yeah, what he wrote in the note wasn't actually happening. Like, that's what I got out of it, right? So it's just one of those things where Daemon is stirring the pot, and you got to feel for him. And again, I can't say it enough, but Daemon is really going to be probably the star of the show and really drive the show, because without Daemon, it's just not going to be interesting, or not be as interesting in my opinion. He's just going to be he's like the Hound, I would guess, right? Because the Hound did a lot of stuff. Like, he's not a main character, but when he was there, he stole the scene. And you are to have a child, and then Daemon looks like, one day I will. Oh, busted, right? And she ain't going to like that. So also, when this woman was talking to Daemon inside Dragonstone, her voice was a little much. I just couldn't really, the accent or the dialect or the dialogue or whatever was just like, what is she saying? Like, just stop talking. I don't know. Did anybody else feel that way? And I'm just guessing that Daemon was always like the outsider in his own family. Like, he was the troublemaker. He's a good guy and he would do anything for his family. But he sees Viserys as weak, and he knows him, and he sees it as the true colors, and we'll talk about that more at the end of the episode. But as you see Otto and people just standing around, not doing much, Rhaenyra came here and got it all done. And it's a great shot of cinematography. But again, being reckless with the egg, Daemon, you can't do that. He just tosses the egg to Rhaenyra. Like, come on, man. What are you doing? And I hope the eggs are resilient. But Rhaenyra looks down and she smiles like, got it back. Without a fight, without bloodshed. And it's just cool to see. It takes us back to Game of Thrones and, Daenerys. And I think that's why it's doing so well, because we get to see Rhaenyra as Daenerys and Daenerys as Rhaenyra. There's just a lot of carryover for sure. And a great shot here. Cinematography, that's for sure. And before she gets on Cyrax, she looks at Otto and's like, see, I got it done. And then she gets on Cyrax and's like, later losers, I'll fly back. Enjoy how long it takes to sail back to King's Landing. And then we get to see kind of some big stuff, dialogue with Daemon and his mistress. I don't really know her name. But ultimately, it's cool to see Dragonstone, and that was one of the coolest things that I liked about the episode too. And it's not a big deal because, it's not much. But I remember in season 2 of Game of Thrones when it starts with Stannis, and I'm like, who is this person? But it was in Dragonstone, I remember that. And when we get to see this room here, it's a different table with Melisandre, who the actress wants to play that part again. So hopefully she shows up in this series. If it's, not this season, maybe the second season, because it was renewed for a second season. And you can see that Daemon's got to say, oh, it's all right, baby. One day, we'll be okay. We'll get it done. And you get to learn the dialogue of her, that she's pissed. And she should be, right? Because he's basically using her. I mean, maybe he cares about her, maybe he doesn't. And she's protected. But again, the dialogue and the accent, it was just weird. It was tough to understand her. And when people don't talk in a way that's pleasing to the ear, you're like, all right, enough, right? Maybe some people are listening to me right now. They're like, enough of this guy. But you get to see Daemon's like, it's all right, baby. It's all right. I'll take care of you. And I don't even know who his wife is. We haven't even seen her yet. Is she just like an uggo? Like, is she terrible? Is she just not, he doesn't love her because he didn't choose her? Or is she just a terrible person? Because this woman is attractive, but it's just not his wife. So we'll have to see what happens here. Will it be like a Robb Stark Red Wedding kind of thing? We'll have to see. I doubt it. But it's just cool to see the stuff that we saw from Game of Thrones. And I said that before time and time again. And as Daemon, he has to calm his side chick down. He's like, don't worry, I'll take care of you. You're safe here. Don't worry. And then Viserys is like playing with his toys, or no, he's just hanging back, and he's told that Rhaenyra is back from Dragonstone. He's like, what? Huh? She was gone? Like, he has no power, no say, like, whatsoever. And as Rhaenyra comes back, she got it done, no bloodshed, she got that. But it's very telling in my eyes. Like, Rhaenyra is already a fan favorite, I would assume, just because she gets stuff done, she's not messing around, and she plays the role of princess. And she cares about her father. And you can see the Targaryens care about themselves, right? It was just one of those things. And it's not Daenerys' brother, who was terrible, right? We got to see these Targaryens care about each other. At least that's the angle that I'm getting here with. And they talk about marriage. And I guess they're building it up that Viserys was undecided who he should marry. And I'm sure Rhaenyra did not think it was Alicent, but it turns out to be Alicent. Great cinematography again. And it's just interesting because Viserys is kind of making all the wrong decisions, but is it the right decision to marry Alicent and not Corlys's daughter? We'll see, but I just think he's going to make wrong decision after wrong decision, and it's just going to be problems because he's the king, but that doesn't mean you're the most powerful person there, as we know from Tywin Lannister. The king is just the focal point, but even though he may have the powerful position, he doesn't pull all the strings. And you can see Corlys was like, okay, good, I'm going to be the man in charge because my daughter is going to be queen. And Alicent already knew that, I'm guessing, what was going to happen. And Corlys is like, you mother, I can't believe you would do this. And he actually, disrespects Viserys. But Viserys actually says something too. He stands up a little bit. He's like, I'm your king. And Corlys is like, yeah, I guess you're right. And then Otto looks on, like, yeah, I'm pulling the strings. I'm the original Littlefinger. Sit down. Alicent looks down because that's got to be so weird for Alicent and Rhaenyra because that's going to be your mom now. She's like, do I call you friend, bestie, best friend, mom? This is just weird. And Rhaenyra runs away because she's like, I can't deal with this. This is not what I signed up for. So Rhaenyra's out, Corlys is out. And then we get to see the meeting behind the meeting. Again, it's always someone has a different agenda. And you get to see the different choral art or, different stuff here from Corlys's room. I'm guessing, right? So Corlys is meeting with a secret person that we find out that it's Daemon. And I liked how Daemon was like, I'm going to talk about my brother, but you don't say anything about my brother. And you could see that Daemon and Corlys. So Corlys is clearly using Daemon because he needs to protect his ships, the Battle of the Stepstones. We're going to see that for sure. Next episode is what we see from the preview. But I like how they're doing the sinister vibe of Daemon. And Corlys is like, okay, can I trust you? Can we get stuff done? You're a man of action. Like Viserys doesn't really do that. And then we see this guy, the crab feeder. I do not know how to say his name. I probably would say it wrong, but I don't know what's up with this dude's face. So he is the guy that has funding from the Free Cities, I believe, which I guess is the rival to King's Landing because they want them to cause problems at King's Landing. And it's a tale old as time about messing with shipments, routes, supplies, chains, products, just all that stuff, right? And I just, like I said before, I liked it when Daemon was like, I'm going to talk about my brother, but you don't say nothing about him. You haven't earned that privilege. They talk about they're the same and how they're going to do this, and they're people of action. Nothing was handed to them. They're outsiders looking in. They have a lot of power. And so they're building up an alliance for that. And we get to see some good shots of the crab feeder, which again, I don't know how to say the guy's name. I don't know like what's up with the guy's face. Does he have like dragon scales or dragon whatever that was like on the skin? But Daemon is definitely a man of action and going to get stuff done. And then here's a better shot of the crab feeder with some smoke in there for some ships setting on fire, building up for hopefully an epic, awesome third episode. And like I said before, I'm enjoying episodes 1 and 2 so far. House of the Dragon is great. And it's bringing people back to Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones was huge, and I think this is a step in the right direction. So let me know your thoughts. Post your comments below. And I love House of the Dragon.